I think the doctrine of original enlightenment is a really important teaching from Chinese and Japanese Buddhism that if you're interested in Buddhism or you consider yourself on a journey to enlightenment, you might be interested in. It's a radically different perspective on Buddhism to the earlier Indian tradition. The earlier traditions represented the pursuit of enlightenment as something that would take many lifetimes of reincarnation and slow spiritual perfection or perfecting, whereas the doctrine of original enlightenment argues that actually enlightenment is a quality of awareness or a quality of mind that is inherent, just waiting to be discovered, like a treasure beneath one's nose that one cannot see. There are a number of, I suppose, good justifications for thinking of enlightenment in this way. For a start, Buddhism argues that the only thing that is real is permanent. So anything that is impermanent is not real. So if we're looking for something real, the enlightened mind, by definition, it is something that is permanent and unchanging, unlike conditioned phenomena that we experience that depends on other causal processes. And awareness does kind of meet that category in some respects from a certain point of view, because awareness has no qualities of its own that can be impermanent. It's like an empty space or a mirror in which reflections pass and come and go, whilst the mirror does not really change itself. I think another way in which the doctrine of original enlightenment is useful, or at least coherent with the rest of Buddhism, is with relation to the Four Noble Truths. These Four Noble Truths at the very core of Buddhism. According to one Zen master, the Four Noble Truths essentially encapsulate all of Buddhism. And of course, an important aspect of the Four Noble Truths is that in order to reduce the suffering we experience in life, we should minimize desire. Well, if you desire to have a different mind or to fundamentally be a different person, and that's how you're approaching enlightenment, you're essentially engaging in a process of striving and craving, much like the pursuit of anything else in the world. So if you wish to be content, that does imply kind of accepting yourself and your mind as it is, in some sense, at least. I think there are dangers to the teaching. If someone is behaving in a very immoral way and causing lots of suffering for themselves and others, and then they go on about the doctrine of original enlightenment as a way of saying they don't need to change anything, obviously that's not particularly ideal and probably not particularly Buddhist, really. On the other hand, Buddhism is about, at least in Zen Buddhism, is about accepting the present moment as it is, accepting the world and oneself as it is, and the doctrine of original enlightenment might be a useful way to kind of inspire faith in that idea. One of my favourite Zen teachers is known as Banki, and a lot of his sermons involve going around and saying to people things like this. He would say, look, as you sit here now, or stand here now listening to the sound of my voice, were a bird to cry out in the distance or a dog to bark, you would instantly hear it and know exactly what it was. And that's because your mind is already completely perfect in its comprehension of the world and its capacity to see the world clearly. It's like a jewel, a perfect creation in terms of experiencing the world as it is, and you don't need to change it in some fundamental sense. You just need to, I suppose, see it for what it is and stop narrowing it by getting lost in thought so much. It's about, I suppose, being in touch with that aspect of awareness, the aspect of awareness that is actually already in touch with the truth, already seeing the world clearly, already awake, actually. This is, what a Buddha is. It is an awakened one. And the pursuit of awakening need not mean changing your mind into something it is not at the present moment, simply embracing that aspect of your mind that is already awake to the present moment. It seems quite reasonable. In any case, I think whether you believe it or not, whether you go along with it or not, or it's useful or not, I think it's very important that anyone learning about Buddhism is aware of the doctrine of original enlightenment.